Today for our read aloud, I thought I would go back to one of the books that we really were enjoying, and that was The Wayside School Beneath the Cloud of Doom. And since we know that this is a chapter book, there's really only one picture each time, and this is a picture of the very beginning of the chapter. So I thought I would put that up while I read it to you. So we left off on chapter 5, and chapter 5 is called Eric, and What's His Name? Oh, that's right, Eric. There are 3 Erics in Mrs. Jewell's class. Eric Fry, Eric Bacon, and the other one, who everyone always forgets, Eric Ovens. Eric Fry is strong and fast. He is usually the first chosen when picking teams. Eric Bacon is funny, clever, and just a bit sneaky. Everyone in Mrs. Jewell's class likes him, but no one completely trusts him. Eric Owens is kind, quiet, and 100% trustworthy. Sadly, that kind of person is often overlooked. Not today, he thought as he sat at his desk, patiently waiting for Mrs. Jewell to finish taking attendance. Today would be his day of glory. In his pocket was a plastic bag with 83 nail clippings. 2 numbers had been written on the blackboard, 71 and 2,677. So far, the class had collected a total of 2,677 nail clippings. That sounds disgusting. 71 were the most brought in by any one kid. They didn't just have to be toenails, their nails counted too. Eric Ovens took his bag out of his pocket and placed it on his desk. "How many you got?" whispered Kathy, who sat next to him. Eric didn't want to jinx his big day by saying the number out loud. Besides, he knew Kathy would only say something mean or mock him. Mrs. Jewell closed her attendance book. "Anyone have any nail clippings this morning?" Eric Owens raised his hand. "Yes, Eric," said Mrs. Jewell. Eric Ovens quietly pushed his chair back, but before he could get up, he saw Eric Fry already making his way to the front of the room. 40, Eric Fry declared very proudly. Eric Fry had kept his hand in his fist all morning. Everyone thought he was just trying to be tough. Now he opened his fist and let the 40 nail clippings fall into the collection bucket. "Well done," said Mrs. Jewell. Everyone clapped their hands. Eric Ovens smiled as he clapped his hands too. 83 was more than 40. Eric Fry did the math on the board. 2,677 plus 40 equals 2,717. "Halfway to a million," cheered Stephen. "Not quite," Allison told him. "Anyone else?" asked Mrs. Jewell. Again, Eric Ovens raised his hand. But Eric Bacon had already hopped out of his seat and was headed towards the front of the room. He handed Mrs. Jewell a plastic bag full of nail clippings. 349, he declared triumphantly. The class went wild. Charlie gasped. Stephen fell out of his chair. Eric Bacon danced around Mrs. Jewell's desk like a football player who had scored a touchdown. Mrs. Jewell was skeptical of the spectacle. "I could count them," she warned. Eric stopped dancing. "Go ahead," he challenged her. Mrs. Jewell stared at Eric Bacon in the eye. Eric Bacon stared right back. Mrs. Jewell dumped the bag on her desk and divided the clippings into 4 piles. She asked Damien, Allison, and John to help. They each took a pile, and then Mrs. Jewell added their totals together. 349, she announced, just as Eric had said. Again, everyone cheered, and Eric Bacon continued his victory dance. "How did you get so many?" Mrs. Jewell asked. Eric B. stopped dancing. "I went door to door asking my neighbors," he said. Everyone laughed. Leslie had sold wrapping paper door to door, but she couldn't imagine asking people for their toenails. "It's easier than asking for money," said Eric. Everyone was happy to donate. He erased the number 71 and put up 349 in its place. Then he did the math. 2,717 plus 349 equals 3,066. "Almost a million," Stephen called out. "Not even close," said Allison. Mrs. Jules told Eric Bacon to take a Tootsie Roll Pop out of her coffee can. He took one. Then, when she wasn't looking, he took another. Anyone else? Asked Mrs. Jules. Eric Ovens sat glumly at his desk. Raise your hand, urged Kathy. Why bother? He muttered. Kathy got up from her seat and stood next to him. She grabbed Eric's arm and raised it for him. Eric Ovens brought a whole lot, she announced. Well, bring them up, said Mrs. Jules. He had no choice. It's just 83, he said, and then he emptied his bag into the nail bucket. That's the second most ever, shouted Kathy. She started clapping. Amazingly, everyone else clapped too. They were still clapping as he did the math on the board. 3,066 plus 83 equals 3,149. That's closer to 1,000,000, exclaimed Stephen. Everyone cheered. Even Allison couldn't argue with that. That's the end of chapter 5. Next time I read to you, we will start with chapter 6, the opposites, and I'll have this picture printed out for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. This week we have a meeting on Wednesday, and remember, you're supposed to try to create something out of your food. Remember, don't waste your food. Try to eat it, please. And then after that, we will have a scavenger hunt, and it will be something that you guys can all look for at home. But I'm going to need you to be in a place where you can get to things. Your bedroom's fine as long as you can get to things, but remember, scavenger hunts, you have to find something and bring it back as fast as you can, and that's how we're going to judge it. So no more cahoots unless you want to play on your own. Wednesday is our meeting at 1, as always. I hope I see you guys there. And also, I've emailed you the choice board. So I hope you guys have a great week. Email me with any questions and let your parents do the same. Have a great week.